Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Bendall. I'm an academic dress historian working as a university research fellow and lecturer in Australia. And these are my top 5 books for making 17th century dress. Here we go. So first book is the 17th Century Women's Dress Patterns, Book 1. So this was done in conjunction with the Victorian Albert Museum. So the editors are Susan North, who is a curator at the V&A, and then Jenny Tiramani, who is the principal of the School of Historic Dress in London. So this one really has a bit of everything. You've got waistcoats, you've got bodices, you've got mantles, smocks, hoods, coifs, cuffs, kerchiefs, and gloves from across the sort of 1610s all the way up to the mid 17th century, the 1650s. What's really great about these books is it has little introductory essays talking about tailoring, seamstressing, what were these, what were the different techniques that they used. You've got embroidery tools and techniques. These are sort of one of the only books that really detail a lot of embroidery from this period. So if that is something that you were quite interested in, then these will be really valuable. Something also that is really, really amazing for people who are trying to be historically accurate with their sewing. It's okay if you're not, but these actually have all the different sewing techniques. So that is book 1 of 17th century women's dress patterns. So top 2 on my list is, unsurprisingly, the second book of 17th century women's dress patterns. So again, this is in conjunction with the Victorian Albert Museum. It is edited by Susan North and Jenny Tiramani. This covers, so the first book sort of covers the first half of the 17th century. This one covers the second half. So again, you've got, well, it covers some of the first half as well, but you've got gowns, jackets, bodices, stays, pickadilles, linen bands, stomachers, hats, and different types of shoes. There's a really great, for anyone who is interested in the bodies or stays, you've got a great essay in here by Luca Costigliolo. Again, you've got more tips and instructions on how to do certain techniques that are common in 17th century tailoring. So the reason I really like these books is because you have great images of the original garment. Often you'll even have x-rays sort of breaking down the different layers of the garment. Then you have patterns. So I'm actually making this one at the moment, a 1630s bodice. So you have patterns as well. And then quite detailed instructions about how to make them. So yes, I highly recommend both of the 17th century women's dress patterns book. Coming in at number 3 is, of course, the 17th century men's dress patterns. So this is the version of my top 2, but for men. Although it only covers the period 1600 to 1630. So I'm not sure if they ever intended on doing a second book. Because I know, again, this is in conjunction with the Victorian Albert Museum, and I know they have later 17th century men's garments. But in any case, there hasn't been a second one come out, but this one, similar to the 17th century women's dress patterns book, is really great. It gives you a bit of an overview of men's wardrobes in the 30-year period covered by the book. There are some fantastic sort of sketches, drawings of the garments that are in the book. Again, there is things like x-rays, showing you the different layers, as well as different stitching techniques, things like that. I should say these books are not only great for those of you just wanting to make these garments, whether you're involved in reenactment, living history, costuming for film, but they're also great for historians to sort of see the detail of these garments up close in things like x-rays and stuff like that. So again, a lot of really detailed pictures, detailed patterns. The patterns in these books are definitely not for beginners. If you don't really have any experience in scaling up patterns, then these probably aren't the place to start, but they are an amazing resource for Raffy, sorry, my dog, has decided to join us. They are an amazing resource for the shapes of garments during this period. So yeah, my top 3 are the men and women's 17th century dress patterns from the Victoria and Albert Museum in conjunction with, it's not in conjunction with the School of Historical Dress, but most of the people involved in those books are now at the School of Historical Dress. Number 4 is, of course, Patterns of Fashion 5. So this came out in 2018. It is a new addition to the legacy of Janet Arnold. I know the School of Historical Dress is currently revising a lot of Janet Arnold's books, but this is a completely new one that came out in 2018. So obviously this one is for foundation garments. So obviously this one is for foundation garments. So the content, cut, construction and context of bodies, stays, hoops and rumps 1595 to 1795. So it doesn't just cover the 17th century. The reason I love it is because it is not only the most comprehensive pattern book for 17th century bodies and stays, but it also contains other types of bodices. For example, let me have a look. Sort of 1630s bodice. We've got some bodices here from the Dutch and German lands, which I think is a really good addition. Most of the stuff in here is English, but we have some great additions from sort of the continent as well. The other reason I really love this book is because it has some bodices from the middle of the 17th century, quite an underrepresented part of the 17th century. I've actually made this one before. But it also, so the other reason I really like this book is because it has a pattern for the complete ensemble, the complete dress, the silver tissue dress, which is in the Fashion Museum in Bath. So you don't just get the bodice, or a smooth covered stays is what they call them here, but you actually get the pattern for the petticoat skirt as well. So you can make a complete outfit. And then of course you have sort of the later 17th century stays as well. So the only other book I know that has some of the later 17th century stays is Nora Waugh's Corsets and Crinolines. So that's an honourable mention, but so yes, my number 4 is this one. So my number 5 is the Tudor Tailor. So you might be wondering, Sarah, Tudors, that's 16th century, why are you recommending this for a 17th century, costuming or dress reconstruction? Well, it covers, a lot of the patterns in here are applicable to the early 17th century, so to the Jacobean period in England, so the Jacobeans coming after the Tudors. So of course it has some very early Tudor stuff, Henry VIII's court, things like that, but it also has Elizabethan and early Tudor. So things like the doublet bodice in here, things like the waistcoat. The waistcoat, a Jacobean waistcoat and an Elizabethan waistcoat, there's really not much difference. There's no difference really. You can definitely use this waistcoat pattern for a Jacobean waistcoat, especially if you are from a lower class, because again, the fashions didn't tend to sort of change a lot. So the other reason I really like this book is because the patterns in here are graded for a modern body. So I think the women's sizes are for a UK size 12, which is a US size 8, I think. So they have been graded for a modern sized body shape. the instructions in here are actually more theatrical and modern in terms of how they're getting you to put together the garment and the techniques that they're using, as opposed to the first 4 books, which are more historically accurate. So it's a really great introductory book. It's great for the early 17th century. There's some really great information here on fabrics, which are still pretty applicable to those sort of fabrics available in the 17th century as well. So yes, a really great book all round. And I have one more book. So an honorary mention goes to the Dictionary of Fashion History. So this is a really great book to learn more about different fashion terminology from the medieval all the way through to the 20th century. And it has different sections on garments, textiles, everything like that. So that's my honorable mention. So I hope you find those useful. They're my top 5 books with a couple of honorable mentions for how to get into making 17th century dress, what the best resources are if you're interested in making 17th century dress. So I think I will make a companion video to this, which will be my top books and resources for 17th century fashion in general. So books, articles, websites, to understand the context and of clothing in the 17th century. So stay tuned for that, and I will link that down below once I filmed it. Okay, have a great day, everyone. If you want to hear more about early modern dress and material culture, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye. My dog likes to have a drink every time I have to start filming.